Hello and welcome to Undistricted as we are here for instant reaction to Washington Capitals, Carolina Hurricanes, game one of the Eastern Conference semifinals. The Carolina Hurricanes taking down the Capitals in Capital One Arena, 2-1 final score in overtime. Carolina gets the start. Jackson Didley joined alongside me again. Jackson, just a tough loss right there for the Capitals to really get this series going. They had that one goal lead going into the third. They're a pretty good team while ahead, but Carolina had so many opportunities, so many shot attempts, and eventually they found two to go in the back of the net to win game one on the road. A good start for them, but a difficult start here for the Capitals to get things going in round two.
I mean, first things first, when you think about that game, that's just a bad hockey game from Washington when you break it down. We were just talking about the winometer, and basically every advanced stat you see basically says the Caps did not deserve to win that game. That was my instant thought when this game ends. When Jacob Slavin scores that game winner in OT, sneaks right under Logan's pad. First thought is, how did we get to overtime? They played horrible, and the answer is Logan Thompson. That's why the game went to overtime. It was a bad game. It was a really sloppy bad game one. I don't think you can look too far into the stats. Obviously, they are very skewed. The stats don't look good for Washington, but you can't go too far into them. Carolina Hurricanes are a team that like to just throw everything at the net, see what happens. So in those shots on goal, there are a lot of shots that aren't very high quality. They're shots from the point with no screen. They're not getting deflected out in front. They're just kind of shots right in on Logan, and Logan's playing well enough that he's not letting any of those kind of sneak by. The two goals he gave up are just tough goals to stop. That third period goal to tie it, I mean, Logan plays out of his mind, and they tie it up on a terrible turnover in front of the net. Stankoven just puts it home. I don't know what else Logan's supposed to do there. I just thought it was a terrible hockey game altogether. I thought the Caps played terrible.
I think when it comes to the terms of how this game ended up, you're right. It was not the best hockey game. And this was another situation that we saw a lot in round one, was that we did not see really good 60 minutes of hockey from the Washington Capitals. They were not a really strong third period team against Montreal, except for that game four comeback where they scored 4 goals in the Bell Center to really put that series to bed. But it just really felt like that every time you would get through about, a 5-minute series or a 10-minute series, you would look at the scoreboard and be like, all right, Capitals, they're still leading this game, but it really does feel like that Carolina's creating more opportunities. Like if this was the 1970s or 80s and you didn't have the scoreboard on the screen, you would think that Carolina was up by 3 or 4 goals by the way they were getting in the offensive zone. ESPN, I mean, it's a great crew that they have there. They were showing stats after stats in that top left corner about shot attempts. I think it was maybe in the third period or maybe overtime. After the Protas goal, shot attempts Carolina 44, it was Washington only 6. It just really felt like the Capitals didn't really get the momentum they wanted to off of that Protas goal, and they just really did not keep the puck in their offensive zone so much in this one. And it's really hard to win hockey games when you're not creating all these chances. And yeah, you touch base on the winometer from moneypuck.com. They said if they were to play this game, it would be Carolina was a 79.1% chance to deserve to winometer. I've been looking after some really tight hockey games. A lot of them are in that 50 to 55 range, especially the tail end of the first round series. This is nearly 80-20 split. And this wasn't in Raleigh, this was in Washington. So this is a really tough way to get going because all of a sudden home ice has turned and it's the Hurricanes now at the home ice, and they have to be feeling really good about winning that game. You might be able to look at it from devil's advocate position and say, like, if Carolina loses that game, how did they lose that game? They had all these opportunities. But that's not the discussion right now. The discussion is how can Washington clean it up in a series that's going to move really fast. It's going to be Thursday before you know it. Game 2, you're down 1 at home. It's a must-win game all of a sudden. So I think the biggest thing is, like, what was from this game in Washington standpoint, it can really be cleaned up for game number 2 because it has to be 1-1 going to Carolina. I mean, they have an electric environment down there in Raleigh. You can't go down there 2-0. So that's really the thing I'm thinking about right now is where do you really fix what's the big issue? And I guess it's like you were talking about, Jackson. It's just keeping the puck in the offensive zone.
I think when we played Montreal in that first game, you looked at it and went, you can't play like that in the third period. You got to fix these things up. You got to play a full 60 minutes. Looking back at this Carolina game, was there a 5-minute stretch at all where Washington was the better team? Not that I can personally remember, unless we're talking about 5 minutes where, 2 of it was spent on the power play. That first power play, they got 3 shots on goal. Those are the first 3 shots on goal in the game. They couldn't do anything outside of that. You thought, oh, it's a slow first period, whatever. That lasted the entire game. They were horribly offensively the entire game. And that's an issue because as we were talking about a little bit before we started recording, Washington is a better 5-on-5 team, specifically in the playoffs so far. Carolina has been exceptional on the power play, on the penalty kill. And oh my gosh, their penalty kill is fantastic. I think it was that second power play that Washington has. I mean, that's one of the worst power plays I think I've ever seen Washington put together. Couldn't get into the zone. You have to be fast to get into that zone or else you're just not even going to break in. Carolina just completely stops you. I can see why that penalty kill is so good. It's been fantastic under Rod Brind'Amour, and that is why they are insane. Washington is not going to win the special teams battle in this series. They have to win the 5-on-5. And really, they didn't win the 5-on-5 battle. They didn't play well enough. They gave up a goal 5-on-5. Yes, of course, their one goal did come on 5-on-5. They did give up the goal on OT. Special teams, and I think there's some things to be there. I mean, the Caps got that first power play, and then after that, they kind of miss a few penalties on Carolina and then immediately call the first thing on Carolina. It's like, it's annoying, but that is also how the playoffs work. And you know that they always, it doesn't actually matter who commits more penalties or not in the playoffs 90% of the time. It's when they happen, if you do it in the late third period, although Caps got called for one, but that was a very blatant high stick, I think, at the end of that third period. It doesn't matter. Special teams weren't even a factor in this game, and Washington still lost and really got their butts kicked. I don't think it was particularly close. Washington probably did not deserve to even be in overtime in this one. So I think, the fact that this went to overtime, I guess you can count as a really, really disappointing moral one.
And I think there were moments in this game, believe it or not, Jackson, where you're sitting there and saying, okay, Washington still could have won this game. I mean, the moment that kind of changed the outcome of game one, it was the rookie, Ryan Leonard. I mean, he had maybe the best opportunity for the Capitals after the Protas goal. I mean, there was maybe a couple that may have hit off the pipes, but I think that opportunity right there for Leonard was really the moment where he could have been able to put that one in the net and gotten the Capitals that 2-1 lead. But it's a lot of pressure there for a rookie, especially Ryan Leonard, who is still looking for his first goal with a man in the net. So that's still something that he's trying to figure out. But I think that sitting here, and it's always with like game one when it begins, I'm always like, not as nerve-wracking as things get going because it's like, look, it's game one, home ice. Maybe they'll come away with the win with this one. But yeah, I think that we're going to game number 2. I think the nerves are going to step up a bit because if they play anything close to this, it's going to be really tough for the Capitals. And, granted, the fans, they did a really good job keeping energized in that one. But I think that you mentioned a bit about the special teams, Jackson. I think that's something that is, what we saw. Carolina, I think they had one power play where I think it was maybe in the offensive zone for about a minute 50 of it. Like, they just kept the puck in the zone, but the Capitals were still able to get out of it without giving up a power play goal. So I think there's still some things about this Capitals team that we saw in game one that you can really build off of. But yeah, I mean, you look at the advanced analytics, you look even at the box score, and you say, that's just not good enough. I mean, this is where the top 8 teams are. Like, every team that's in the Stanley Cup playoffs right now, they pretty much have a legitimate case that they can win the Stanley Cup. I actually really do believe that. So you have to bring your A game out every single time. And I mean, Carolina is a team that's hungry, right? They're still kind of hungry. They haven't been able to go to a Stanley Cup final in this kind of stretch of time, like when they've had all these key players with them for the Hurricanes. So there's also that chip on the shoulder as well that you're going to have to go up against. And you can only really hope that Spencer Carberry kind of figures out a game plan and says, let's try to do this one. Because I think the Capitals played really good offensively against Montreal. But there's a difference where it's the last team into the playoffs versus a team that has been probably one of the more consistently best put together teams in the Metropolitan since 2019.
I think it's quite interesting how many people are doubting not just Carolina, but also Washington to a degree. I think a lot of media gurus do have Carolina winning this series. I just love Carolina. They base a lot of their things off of analytics, is my understanding. So that makes sense why analytics do favor them. But so many people don't believe in Washington, who just won the East, was fantastic all regular season until the end then when they took their foot off the gas. I'm surprised so many people don't believe in Washington. And then you look at Carolina, I'm surprised so many people don't believe in Carolina. Like this is pretty much a series between two teams that no one believes in. And Carolina, I think, is maybe they just haven't been able to get to the big one yet. You know, they've gotten to those 2 conference finals, both under Brenda more recently, and have lost. They've lost a lot of, second round series. I don't think they've lost any first round series really, but Carolina, I think, is a really good team. I think they're built really well. They have some really, really good players. Andrei Svechnikov, I thought, was fantastic tonight. I thought he was the best player on the ice all night, outside of Logan Thompson. Svechnikov hit a few pipes. You talked about it. I mean, I think Svechnikov hit 2 crossbars in 1 period. They had a couple other posts. Like, Washington got bailed out by LT. They got bailed out by the post. This shouldn't have been a 1-to-1 game going to OT. And it was the clear better team, I thought, for the vast majority of the game, maybe legitimately 55 minutes. Even when the Caps were on a power play, at times it felt like Carolina was the better team. Carolina was also, I was so confused by some of their power play. Because you watch Carolina play, and their clear game plan is, if you have the puck, shoot the puck. I don't care if there's a screen in front. I don't care if there's a guy out there to tip it coming across the ice. I don't care if it's a wide open look. I don't care if there's 2 defenders in front. They shoot the puck. That's all they do. That's why the Caps end up with a bunch of block shots. The Canes end up with a bunch of unintentional block shots because they shoot it at their own guys because they just constantly shoot the puck. Then you get to a power play, and you talked about how they were in the zone for that one, pretty much the entire power play. They didn't even shoot the puck. They just passed it. It was so like Carolina's whole game plan to shoot the puck. And then you get to a power play where you have the best chance to do this. There's always a guy in front screen. There's always a guy up there that can probably try to tip the puck. And they just stop shooting. I thought that was super confusing. I think they should be peppering it, even on power play, because, they were good at getting those loose pucks. They were good on the forecheck. I think it'd make more sense if they were just shooting it well on the power play. But I don't know, outside of goaltending, if there was a single facet that Washington was better. And even that being said, I thought Frederik Andersen played very well. His numbers aren't going to look great from this one because Washington couldn't get shots on goal. But even the goal he gave up to Protas, I mean, that's probably one he does want back in some sense. But that's just a great shot. There's not much you can do there. Protas gets the scoring start in that second period. It's a great shot. It's an open look. He beats him. And that's what it's going to take to score on Andersen. I think every goal that was scored was some kind of player mistake around or kind of a lucky bounce in some way. Protas, I think, was... can't let him get that rush. Great shot. Stankoven ends up scoring. That's just a terrible, terrible giveaway. Logan Thompson plays great all game. Terrible, terrible giveaway in front of the net. Can't have that. That's how they tie it. And then in overtime, get pucks on net, good things happen. Jacob Slavin shoots it in, and, it kind of sneaks under that pad of LT. Goes in. Big game 1 win that they deserved. They deserved to win game 1. Now it's tough for Washington to go down 1-0, and now you really need to win game 2 because you're at home. The last thing you want to do is if you go down to Raleigh down 0-2, good luck. Those are tough to come back on. I mean, it's possible, but it's going to make life hard.
So I think the thing now is like, okay, it's game 1, game 2 coming up next. Still so much of the series really alive. One thing I did notice, I think it was in overtime, they did do a big line change. They moved Protas to the first line, brought Beauvillier back into the fourth line. Do you think that's something that we get to see more of for Washington in game 2?
That's interesting too, because Beauvillier was playing so well on that first line. Like I when he first got thrown up on that first line, I was like, why do we just move Anthony Beauvillier to the first line? But he played really well. He was really chippy. He was winning a lot of those forechecks, playing quite well with those guys. But there's no denying that Alexi Protas is the better player. Obviously, he's the better player. He was fantastic 5-on-5 all year. Good to have him back. Scores tonight. It'd be a line I'd want to see. I think that first line is so good if you have Ovechkin and Protas all on one line. Because those dudes are all just fantastic. I think Strome and Protas, I think are your 2 best offensive guys on the team right now. Ovechkin is, still a great scorer, but I think those 2 guys are just great. And Ovechkin still has it as well, 39, so I wouldn't mind still seeing that line, and I thought it was a necessary change because they had to change something. They couldn't get anything going, but I don't know if that was the issue. I think it was every single guy. It's not like one line. I didn't think one line outperformed the other line. I just thought everybody played kind of flat, didn't play too well, and couldn't get opportunities.
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing for the Capitals is just trying to generate more offense. I think on the other side of the ice it was a pretty good game. You touched base on all of it about defense, LT playing good. If you hold the Carolina Hurricanes to 2 goals a game, if that's your average, I think the Capitals still have a legitimate shot of winning this series. And that's a mentioned overtime game. Like, it was 1 goal in 60 minutes allowed. How many shot attempts do they have? Near 90? So I think there's still a lot of positives to come away from this game. It's just a tough one to really watch on the other side. It was like, yes, that's the defense that we want to see from the Capitals. But then they bring the puck to their zone, and it's like, what happened? Like, what happened on neutral ice today that just, like, it was a good Caps team, and then all of a sudden they went through the little machine that was, that like Matt, they used to have that function machine that they put 2 numbers in, and then out came another number. Well, whatever happened in neutral ice, it just came out on the other side offensively, and it just wasn't really that pretty. But, there's been some tough times as well. I thought after Game 3 in Montreal, I was like, they gave up 6 goals to Montreal. Like, how's this series ending in 5? And they figured it out. Marbury is a great coach. I mean, he was a great coach last year. He's a great coach this year. He's probably going to win the Jack Adams this year. There's debate for that to be had. But I think overall that it's a good coach. It's a good veteran team. I think they find a way to figure it out. And I do think that there's going to be a bit more of an offensive presence moving forward.
I mean, I think it's only game one, I think is the number one biggest thing to remember here. Just game one. That's all. You can't panic after game one. If we panicked after every game one in 2018, that would have been utterly ridiculous. The Caps trailed in every single one of those series and still won the Stanley Cup. You don't need to panic after game one. There's plenty to go, but it wasn't a good showing. Carolina Hurricanes, they gave up more than 2 goals once in the first round. 5 games against New Jersey. They gave up 2 goals in 2 games. They gave up 3 goals and 5 goals. But in regulation, the most goals they gave up was 4. They didn't allow more than 2 in any other game other than that. They were fantastic, and they were playing against another good goalie. We talk about how good Logan Thompson's played, but you know who probably the best goalie was in the first round? Was Jacob Markstrom with New Jersey. So Logan Thompson can do everything he can. Granted, I think the forwards and everybody around Logan Thompson is much better than what Markstrom has around him in New Jersey. But Carolina's already beaten a really good goalie. They can beat another really good goalie here as well. So I think you just got to look out for Carolina, but you got to do better with the puck battles. You got to come out with more, fire, tenacity. I think Spartans Carberry can get these guys right, but Carolina's a good team. But it is only game one. There's plenty of time to go.
Yeah, still plenty of time for the Capitals to get back into it. All right, so this is something that Jackson and I are really looking forward to doing after every Capitals game, whether it be, the night of, the morning after, depending on how long these games go. We had an overtime game tonight, but it unfortunately didn't last as long as didn't give the Capitals enough time to really come away with it. So this is something that we really are going to try to do here for this playoffs. I think starting with this, trying to get more of the instant reaction and our thoughts from what we just saw and really talk to you guys about everything really that we thought about the game. And I think this is something that we're going to try to do for a lot of different things. The Capitals, the Commanders, Wizards, Nationals, especially in big moments like this, with it being the Stanley Cup playoff second round. So hopefully this is something that you guys all like. And Jackson, looking forward to talking on Thursday. Really hope that it's going to be a more positive segment coming up out of this, and maybe a 1-1 series, and we're sitting here about 48 hours from now and saying, all right, now it's a best of 5, you got to steal one from the Canes.
Big game 2 coming up. You can't go down to Raleigh down 0-2, so it's going to be a big game, and we'll look forward to covering it right after. But thank you guys for listening, watching, wherever you did, and we'll see you guys on Friday right after hopefully the Caps have made it 1-1 in the series.
That's right. Talk to you guys after Thursday. Appreciate the listen.